Small business owners, entrepreneurs, medium startups, and VCs, this one's for you. Welcome to Beyond the Bottom Line, Balancing Evolution with Execution, hosted by Elevate Talent Solutions founder and CEO, Ron Miller. Through Ron's own hard-won wisdom, along with an array of luminaries across the entrepreneurial ecosystem, you'll glean priceless wisdom that will help you see past the day-to-day grind and into the future where you can check off today's to-do list and achieve innovation and elevation to ensure your business is future-proof, fulfilling, and profitable. It's time for Beyond the Bottom Line, balancing evolution with execution. Take it away, Ron.
Hey, and welcome back for another episode of Beyond the Bottom Line. So today I want to talk about authenticity and origin stories. And I'm going to start out by talking about a little bit of one of my favorite TV shows of all time. That's Ted Lasso. And for those of you that don't believe me or have never seen Ted Lasso or know my love of the show, like right here, if he's watching this, he's eating a mug. Ted Lasso, be a goldfish, right? It's a great line from the movie early on, but that's not the quote I want to start with today. It's a quote in one of the best written scenes I've ever seen in a show. And that is, be curious, not judgmental. To set the stage in the show at that point, Ted and, his team and the former owner, who's just a rich, cheating, horrible son of a bitch. And his ex-wife, who owns the team now that Ted works for, in a bar, the ex-husband and his girlfriend, they're just being abhorrent, throwing money around, boastful jackasses. And Ted challenges him to a game of darts, which he starts intentionally losing on to get the bet, because his bet really is if he wins, the ex-husband has to stay away from the team and out of the owner's box while the ex-wife owns the team. Period. End of it. That's the bet. And the only question that this boastful dumbass asks is simply, do you like darts? Doesn't ask him anything else. Just assume, judges. And at the end of it, as Ted was letting him win and kind of baited him in, he ends with, right before he kicks his ass and does the impossible, he says, I saw a quote by Walt Whitman on driving his kid to school one day. He spent his life trying to figure out why people always gave him a hard time and always looked down on him. The quote was, be curious, not judgment. And if somebody had just taken a minute to be curious and he said, have you played a lot of darts, Ted? To which I would have answered, why, yes. Every Sunday from the time I was 10 to 16 with my father in the sports bar before he passed away. And with that, Ted closes out and kicks his ass and wins it. And the ex-husband has to put the tail between the legs, go back to his money, and then he skirts away because he was embarrassed because he was judgmental and not curious. It's a great scene. If you've never seen the show, I highly recommend it. But let's get into this episode, because really, at the end of the day, that's the thing, isn't it? I think we've all gotten so caught up in judging the value of someone's story by how dramatic it sounds, or how dark the struggle was, or how shiny the comeback is. But here's the truth. None of us needed a redemption arc. You think because you're not broken, you don't have something to say. I think that all the time, right? I don't think because I'm not completely broken, I don't have anything to say. Some people, they were built in fire. Others were built in silence and hard work. And not everyone gets a Hollywood comeback or ending, right? Just because my story doesn't sell tickets or your story doesn't sell tickets doesn't mean you didn't build something real or part of something real. And it doesn't mean that you can't do it again and again and again. So this episode's kind of a call out. It's a reality check, because somewhere along the line, we all started believing that your worth is tied to your wounds. And that's not truth. That's marketing, right? So kind of let's get into it. And what set me off down this topic rabbit hole today was I woke up this morning, I get on LinkedIn as I get going for the day, and I see this article that somebody had written. And again, I'm not going to name the article. I'm not going to name the person, because it's not about calling out. It's about seeing what I'm seeing. And some of you might have seen the same Forbes article. It is the 10 things to really tell your origin story. How do you tell your story better? And it's all about sharing your origin story, sharing what you've overcome, what podcasts you listen to that shape you. And listen, podcasts I listen to, I don't even listen to my own podcast because I don't like to hear myself talk. I listen to the recordings before it goes out and make sure that it's good. I got people that do it as well, but I'll sit and listen to, you know what I listen to? I listen to like New Heights, right? Because who doesn't like New Heights, right? There's like 2 or 3 that I listen to, but I'm not a big podcast listener. I'm just not. Doesn't mean that I can't lead, I can't build, I can't. So what? Unless I like podcasts, I can't help you. You know, unless I like certain things, I can't help you because I don't have a stack of books and an avid reader. I can't connect with you. It's crap, right? It's trying to get people to tell a story from a specific point. And that culture is getting performative, that telling your story, it's becoming so performative, right? Vulnerability isn't a strategy. It's a human experience. And the push to share your trauma, to connect, has become commodified, in my opinion. It's no longer about truth. It's about storytelling and traction. And the authenticity of individuals gets lost in that. You know what else gets lost in there? My voice, your voice, and our stories, right? So not everyone has overcome some major obstacle or tragedy or massive addiction or survived a firing squad or a landslide or, sold plasma to build their business as they lived in the back of a Winnebago down by the river, right? There's a lot of us out there that come from blue collar roots, stable upbringings, years of consistent work. And that is still a story. And why quiet consistency shouldn't be dismissed as boring, right? My origin story came from a middle-class family. My dad was a blue-collar worker, worked at Mack Trucks for over 40 years, turned wrenches, worked in the tool crib, loved what he did, worked on the line, built trucks. He worked his ass off. And you know what he taught me? He taught me how to work my ass off. Because if you're going to get anywhere, you need it to work for it. There were no handouts. There were no gimmies. There was no passes. It was hard work. And I've lived that work ethic my entire life. I'm not the most talented individual in the world, right? We all know that. We're all not like sports stars, movie stars, best talkers, best this, best that, blah, 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 blah. If we all were, the world would be boring. But there's so many of us that are in this middle that we feel like we don't have a voice because we didn't have some trauma that we can exploit to tell our great origin story that makes me worth working with. I think it's just bullshit, right? Because we've all worked our asses off in one way, shape, or form, regardless of who you are, where you've come from, or what you've done. There's a story in that, a story about what you've learned, how you've become a better individual from it, and mistakes that you've made and the things that you've seen that have doing it again, you would do something different, but you can't go back and change it, right? I'm not going to sit here and spew my family history of some of the crazy shit. Listen, we all have crazy families. We all have people in our lives that you just like scratch your head like, I don't know how you survive, or we don't talk to anymore because they're nuts. But I'm going to spew that out here to make me interesting, right? I mean, do I do you? I think it's crap. I don't need to spew any of that. I'm not going to sit here and yarn the tale of the leader I work for that had more NDAs, as compared to years of profitability leading an organization. So that's not my story to tell. I can tell you what I learned. I can tell you what I overcame, with my team, how I protected him, and how I did the best job possible, but wasn't perfect the entire time. Just got better, trying to get to do what was right. But it's not spectacular. And maybe it's boring, but should the boring be dismissed because it's not quantitative? I think our authenticity and our stories are being held hostage by funnels. And let me get to not just the post this morning that I alluded to, but so many of these other ones that we see out there, that we see the same thing about telling your story, getting your brand right, getting this right. Free webinar on how to do this, free webinar on how to really get yourself noticed on LinkedIn. And it's always just enough of a teaser, posted generally by the same people that are like, by doing these 5 steps, I now have 50,000 a month in funnels. You could get there too. You could be in $1 million of billing in 6 months. And all the while teasing you to come in to unravel your great origin story, your hero arc for $599, because it's never just about the free webinar to help you get there. It's about the pull to get you in and so close to doing it that you need that little extra help to tell your story. And it's the same people charging $599 for that course to draw you in are the same ones boasting about how they get there. And that's not mentorship. It's manipulation with better lighting. It really is. Why don't we all just start normalizing the study builder? I know it's not glamorous, right? I blame reality TV on this, right? Like the Kardashians, the Valley, the 90-Day Fiancé, the 60 Days After, the Real Housewives. It's all made up, scripted bullshit by people that are so unimportant at the end of the day. But unless we do that with our lives somehow, we lose authenticity of being someone to be chosen to work with, or enough interestingness in order to engage to see if we are a good fit for your job or your business as a consultant or an employee for your organization. I'm sorry that so many of us have study builder lives, but think about the value of the person who's always just been there, improving little by little. They don't have a I lived in my car montage. They just show up and do the work and do it well and learn and want to get better and want to make a difference. And that's more relatable and reliable than 90% of the polished bullshit of the influencer stories that are out there. Really think about it, right? We got to normalize the study builder. What actually builds trust? Consistency, integrity, quiet wins that nobody is out there applauding and clapping for all the time. And it's not a LinkedIn post with a moody headshot, a cute selfie, and piano music in the background, right? It's not. And let me close with authenticity. Authenticity in someone is in the eye of the person judging. So you could be your authentic self, but if they feel like you're not authentically for them, well, then is it real authenticity or is it manufactured authenticity? And we've blurred the lines with both the bullshit so badly now that unless you have an arc in a hero's story, you're being told that your story is not worthwhile. And I think that's total and utter bullshit. I really do. So let's close it with this. Captain Marvel, you don't have to prove anything to anybody but yourself. And so if you're sitting there thinking that your story isn't worth sharing because it doesn't have a plot twist or an arc, let me say this to you. You matter. Your voice matters. And your work, done in silence, done through repetition, done without applause, done by just showing up and working your ass off, has always mattered. You don't owe anyone a trauma reel. You don't have to cry on camera to be credible. And you damn sure do not need to pay someone $5.99 to find a story you're already living or to conjure up some type of connectable hero arc to grow yourself, your business, or to get a job. Because your story doesn't need to be a comeback. It just needs to be real. No fluff, no bullshit, just you. And you don't need to pay someone to get that. So that's it for this episode of Beyond the Bottom Line. I hope you enjoyed listening. And hey, drop a comment down there. Share your real story in your background. I'll be happy to share it and engage. I like to hear the realness that it's out there because I'm not built on bullshit. I'm built on blue collar myself. So I get it and I see you. You're not alone and neither am I. Till next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beyond the Bottom Line, Balancing Evolution with Execution, hosted by Ron Miller, CEO of Elevate Talent Solutions. You can learn more about him at elevatetalentsolutions.net and by following him on LinkedIn. This podcast was developed, edited, and produced in partnership with Courtney Reimer of Sounds Great Creative Podcast Strategy. If you want to make a podcast or make your existing podcast even better, Courtney is here to help. Find her on LinkedIn, that's Courtney with a C, Reimer, or at soundsgreatstrategy.com. Special thanks to Adrian Ruthard for keeping us all in line. Adrian is also the CEO of boutique marketing firm ACR Ventures. Check her out at acrventures.com. Be sure to hit that follow button, send us love letters and episode ideas at elevatetalentsolutions.net, and tune in next week.